Let me refresh.
There we go. I think I see it now.
Let me do one more refresh because it takes the browser. Hey, Ru and Anna, if you guys have any questions about crowdfunding, feel free to ask me on here, okay? I'll have Nelson on here. I'm also streaming on Instagram as well.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Very cool. Okay, cool. I see it now, so I'm going to share it on my page. And then give me 1 second.
Great. How's the weather out there?
It's been raining like crazy these last 2 days, man. Real crazy. All right, everybody. I would like to welcome Nelson Grande from Avenida Productions. Nelson's a crowdfunding expert, and their company has raised over $1 million in, would you say, about the last year, a little over a year?
Yeah. We're about to turn 2 years old, so it's coming up on a couple of years. We're at 1.2.
Wow. So you guys are getting pretty close to hitting 1.5, right?
Oh yeah, we're coming up there. We're coming up there quick.
Well, Nelson, we would love to, if you don't mind, just giving us a quick overview of, how you got into the film business and how you ended up venturing into, becoming pretty much a crowdfunding expert, man. Because from what I've seen, man, you guys have an amazing, success rate, as far as, accomplishing, other people's dreams, to get funding, which is probably one of the most important aspects of, film production.
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, thanks for interviewing us here, man. It's great to be on here talking with you and sharing this with the community of filmmakers. So, the way my journey began through this was just seeing that there was a lack of opportunities for filmmakers, for creators, for actors, for people of diverse backgrounds. Myself, I'm a Latino, and as an actor, I found myself in roles that were always just filled with stereotypes. I was always the drug dealer, just the criminal, things like that. And I was sick of doing it. I was sick of it. And my partner, which a lot of you know, Fanny Velis, is an amazing filmmaker. She's been working on, several projects, won several awards, an amazing actress and director. And she's been an activist in this community for a long time as well, just supporting filmmakers of all diverse backgrounds to have their stories told. When we got together, we realized that there was not just so much a market for it, but there was more of a need to support independent creators to tell their stories. A lot of us that come from diverse backgrounds, mainly, people of color and also women, aren't given the same opportunities that others are. But, we all have great stories to tell. So when we opened Avenida, we were met with some great response and, a lot of eager and extremely talented filmmakers. And that's how we started, out of a need, really.
And I believe, because I've actually had the pleasure to work with your partner Fanny Velis twice already, Yeah. And I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, her journey was very very unique because she launched her crowdfunding campaign right at the cusp of when Kickstarter started getting a little bit of noise, and Indiegogo was starting to get some traction. And from what I remember, I think her first feature film, she was trying to raise, I think it was $28,000. And from what I remember having the conversation with Fanny was that, Kickstarter is one of those programs that, it's do or die. If you can be a penny from your goal, and if you don't hit that goal, man, it's heartbreaking. And then you'll get an announcement saying hey, you didn't hit your campaign. And I believe she was either a few $100s or a very minimal from hitting her goal. And what she did, the ingenious, once again, just to show people how much commitment somebody needs to commit, to make their passion and to make their film possible. what she did, or at least from what I remember, she contacted every single person that had contributed through Kickstarter, and she made a personal page, and she raised that money like I think it was like in a matter of weeks. Once again, just showing you just her just hustle of just I'm gonna make this happen no matter what. And then I'm pretty sure she got like an insane amount of insight during the process. Like wow, like I might have something going.
Well, so what happened with Fanny? I'll give you an example. Yeah. So what Fanny originally was going for, she was going for $150,000. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now she didn't know any better at the time. This is when she was like, this is where where the learning began. $150,000 was her original goal, and a lot of people that come to us, think that they need to raise this much money also to create their films. There was a lot of trial and error. She did, come short of her goal a couple of times, but, there's a huge advantage to being an independent creator nowadays. The thing is, your dollar goes a lot further now, with the advances in technology and social media and all of that right now. I mean, people are creating entire movies on their phones.
Of course.
So the thing is, when you're crowdfunding, you really want to be realistic. You want to be realistic with how much money you're going for. If you're trying to create a project and you're going for a large goal like $150,000 or like that, it creates a gap where people already see that it's kind of a little unrealistic, so they tend to not jump on board already. But going back to what Fanny was doing, Fanny did go back and she asked everyone, to up their contribution, or the people that when she didn't hit that Kickstarter goal, she went back person by person and actually asked them to put their contribution in through a different method. So she was, she was tough. She didn't give up.
Yeah, and considering, like I said, I've known a lot of colleagues that have tried, doing some form of crowdfunding, whether it's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Seed and Spark, and there's a couple of other, pretty notable crowdfunding programs that people can use. But I think it's going to go. This all ties into I guess one of the main questions that a lot of independent filmmakers and content creators have to ask. That they ask is like, what is that? And it's hard to pinpoint just one thing that makes a crowdfunding campaign successful. And there's just so many. It's just like production, right? There's so many elements. Yeah. You have your screenplay, you have your actors, you have your director, you have your producers. And with crowdfunding, I've noticed that, at least in my opinion, because, I've studied it quite intensively. And one of the recurrent themes is like, your network has to be pretty strong, man, to really start, so you can, start making some initial noise like towards the beginning. There's been other filmmakers that said if you have like at least a third kind of like pre-committed, that can increase the likelihood of hitting your goal. And so I mean, everybody, I'm pretty sure are extremely curious, like, is it social media? Is it email? Is it your pitch video? And I mean, I'm pretty sure they're all play an important component. But have you kind of like, have you digest something and kind of like figured something like, what, I think this is where, people kind of like fall short.
You know what? It's actually, that's actually kind of a common question. People ask, you kind of want to know what the combination is. What is the combination? And the truth is there is no real combination. There are a lot of elements that take, that make up a successful campaign. I use a lot of analogies, so you'll hear me drop a lot of analogies. Mixed in with, your social network, your email contacts, your professional network, your just a ton of other things, your presence online, what actors are attached, all of this. All of those things are just tools that we use. And I like to tell people it's like we're cracking a safe. We play around with different combinations until we open that door. Now we've opened that door. And that door signifies, the first group of contributors that takes us to X amount of dollars. Well, guess what? Now we've met another door. So now we've got to take all of that stuff and we got to reconfigure it to try to unlock that next group of contributors.
So, wow.
Yeah, it really is. What I tell everybody is that campaigns are all similar in one way, that they're all different. And it sounds ridiculous, but they're like fingerprints. They have a general outline, but they're all unique. Whenever we work on campaigns, it isn't a cookie cutter type of method that we go, okay, let's take this and put it here, and now let's slap that name on it. It really is just a number of actions, and you got to see what works for your campaign. If you're an influencer, you've got that huge, following to your advantage. So it does play a lot of different things, but it's good. You did bring up a lot of good points. All those things are points that are important, but you just got to see which one works the best for you and when.
And it's the same thing with, like, if you're trying to raise, funding for a film, like in the traditional sense, actually, depending on the genre, depending on the script, sometimes, actually investment does make better sense to try to raise money for your film. And sometimes it's pre-sales. If you have a lot of assets, if it's a genre that, translates, extremely well in the foreign market, then sometimes, that pre-sale structure works really well. Sometimes even a little bit of product placement can definitely, add into the pool of, having your film funding. But it's really interesting the way that you broke it down, because it's like each mini milestone kind of resets that lock, and you have to like figure out, okay, if we hit, like, if your goal is, let's say 25K, right? Let's start off with, if your goal is 25K in that first week, you hit 5,000. I mean, that's a pretty decent little track record. Like, okay, cool. We hit one of our milestones. So let's start experimenting again. And I think that was one of the things that we were discussing a few weeks ago, that you mentioned that you have to constantly be, experimenting to start, unlocking that save, so I can, floodgates can start opening again.
Yeah, it is. And speaking on the things that help in the traditional sense, the traditional way works. Listen, if we have someone who's going to give us financing for a project, and we don't have to, crowdfund all that, that's great. And that's kind of the hope that everyone goes for. Unfortunately, there's just a very small group of people that get that, that kind of make it through there. So crowdfunding is become our new primary, because there are a ton of benefits to crowdfunding. First of all, you have a community that's behind you and that's supporting you financially. Now they're giving you their hard-earned money out of support for you, and that money, it doesn't have to be paid back financially. You do have a responsibility to your community, and that responsibility is to create a project of quality, of your best quality, and what you told them you would make. So one of the benefits is, that money was given to you out of the goodness of people's hearts and support for you. That doesn't have to be paid back financially. And second of all, is when people give you their hard-earned money, they give you $1 of their hard-earned money, they become invested in you. They become part of your journey. So when that project is released, and your film or your short or your pilot, whatever it is released, you have all those hundreds of people that have been waiting around for months for you to complete this, to be eagerly watching it. So in all honesty, I think that if I were to be making a project that's going to be within the realistic crowdfunding range, maybe sub 100,000, $20,000, $40,000, $50,000, I just crowdfund, because the benefits of it are so much greater. And when you have money that's been given to you out of support, as opposed to as a business transaction, as a creator, you're able to focus more on creating.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and you don't have that pressure on you about having to, return profits, or having some money guy or money woman telling you how to create your project now.
And also so going back to when like deciding like what your budget, like, okay, like, like whether you get a line producer or you get a UPM to give a budget, an assessment of how much it's going to take to produce your film, right? Mm-hmm. And I've seen very successful filmmakers that do them in stages, right? Like one for pre-production, one for production, and one for post, And going actually back to your original statement that you mentioned, is like you're also building an audience, man. Like when you have a successful campaign,
Oh yeah.
you're assembling pretty much a fan base that hopefully if you deliver on what you were trying to raise, like a really successful film, they're most likely going to come back and continue giving in the event that you decide to use crowdfunding again. And so that being said, Nelson, so let's say like for a typical like for me is at least as of right now, I would say that the sweet spot for any independent film right now is about like, and I'm talking about a micro budget film, right? Like a really good solid drama, uh, um, or something like along those lines, like 75K, 150K. You can do that's a very comfortable number, and I'm still talking like whether it's a combination of investments, a combination of crowdfunding, some product placement, some sponsorship, especially if it's a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, like if a filmmaker comes up to you and tells you, you know what, I have a budget, that my line producer or one of my producers did, and it's about 150K. What should be that initial amount that I should? Because once again, you mentioned that you have to be realistic. 150K for a drama with no known actors for a first time filmmaker is definitely going to be a lot more challenging as opposed if you're an established filmmaker that has maybe 2 features or 3 features under your belt. You have a really decent name that's actually willing to maybe lend their image and their voice to support the crowdfunding campaign. That you're going to have 2 different outcomes, right? As opposed to being a first time filmmaker trying to hit a way bigger goal, and then obviously not hitting that goal, and that's obviously getting that's probably one of the most upsetting things for any filmmakers. They spend a month or 2 prior kind of planning everything out, 2 or 3 weeks, and they're hitting 10-15% of what their initial goal is, and it's already like 2 weeks before the campaign finishes.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Look, everyone has no matter what stage you're at, even if you're at the studio level, everyone has a dream budget and everyone has a realistic budget that they got to work with. And to briefly touch on something, to go over $100,000 for a crowdfunding campaign isn't a common thing. Although we have managed campaigns that go over 100,000 without celebrities attached to it. So, I mean, that's realistic. I just want to get that done. But what is also realistic is, going for smaller ranges. Now, you asked a couple of questions in there. So the one question I want to answer first is, how much money should people have going into it? There's an industry standard to have pre-committed, talking to your friends and family and people who you're going to let them know that you're starting a crowdfunding campaign. And that usually is about 30%. 30% is kind of like the industry wide known percentage that's solid, realistic, and comfortable. To make numbers easier, to say, it's if you're going for 50K, then that would be what 50K, then that would be roughly $15,000. Which is hard. I'll tell you what, it's not the easiest to do. It's not the easiest to have 15K already. Committed to you prior to launching when you're trying to raise 50. It's tough in general. Crowdfunding isn't the easiest thing. I mean, it's always doable, but it can get tough at times. But again, going back to this whole, let's just say you got a UPM telling you need 150K. Well, let's say you don't get 150K. Let's say you fall short of your budget and you land at 60K. Okay, let's just cut it short. If you land at $60,000 and you're with one of these platforms that, let's say for Indiegogo, for instance, that you can keep 60K, well, guess what? You now have $60,000. You're either $60,000 as first monies to have the secondary monies come in from an investor, because when you have first monies, it's easier to have
of course
second monies come in. No one wants to jump in first. That's just how it is. No one wants to jump in first. And if it really comes down to it, let me tell you, if it really comes down to it, if I'm making a film and I fall short, and if I wanted to make $100,000 film and I got $50,000 now, I'm still going to shoot it because I'm still going to employ people. I'm still going to tell a story, and that credit and that experience is still going to get myself and my crew and my team and my community closer to the next step that's going to get us that 100K or the 250K and all of that. So, and that's what we do in production. Numbers are always short. Time is always short. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, we adjust, you get the experience, and then we grow for the next one.
And Nelson, like, so let's say, a filmmaker wants to venture, right? They're thinking about, like, you know what? I think this is a platform. This is a project that, they want to raise 30K, right? Like that's I've seen a lot of 25 to 35 cases, very healthy.
That's very doable. That's kind of like average everyday kind of stuff.
Yeah. And how much time would you recommend? Because I would even say that there's a development phase, there's a pre-production phase, and then there's the campaigning, and then it's like, the way that we would consider like post-production, where it's like, where you're finishing the film so you can start sending out your perks to the people that supported the campaign. So from your experience, like even before somebody reaches you, right? Like before somebody's already a filmmaker's already considering, what, I think I'm going to crowdfund 25, 35K, for my feature film. Mm-hmm. How much pre-legwork should that filmmaker do, so to speak? What kind of prior commitments should they be discussing within their own network? So by the time they hit you, the success rate's going to be even way, way, way higher, because they've done some kind of realistic legwork. You know what I mean? Like they might have had $5,000-7,000 kind of like pre-committed from like 10 individuals. They might have had some decent actor that wants to be fully committed into the project, lending their voices, being very active on social media, so they can drive traffic into the campaign.
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked this, okay? Because there's actually a bigger conversation around, what people should do ahead of time. And so what happens is, what I see that some of the biggest things that get in the way when preparing for a crowdfunding campaign is that people do a couple things. One, people are already going into the campaign assuming, okay, well, we're going to do a campaign and we're going to raise $30,000. That's a little dangerous because and just saying you're going to campaign and raise 30K is easy, but actually doing the work and raising the money is tough. It requires a lot of work. It really does. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's us doing it. We still do a lot of work. If people hire us to do it, we're taking a crazy amount of steps daily to make that happen. So when people tie it in and they've already got a shoot date and they've got their budget set for that amount, it kind of puts them in a position where they're stressed out during the campaign. Like, we have to get this money. We have to get this money. And that's not going to make for a successful campaign. So what I suggest is, if you're going to raise money and try to tie it into your campaign, allow yourself enough time before you actually get into pre-production, before campaign. Have campaigning be a step prior to pre-production, because once you have, let's work with these numbers again, 30K, if your UPM still tells you need 40K, well, you've got 30, now you're only stressed out about 10. That's something you can work with. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do recommend, having the campaign be something ahead of time, but sometimes it doesn't always work that way, but like you did mention earlier also, we have done campaigns for finishing funds, for post-production. Now, there's no pressure on that either. I mean, the only pressure is the time that you don't want this sitting around on your hard drive for months and months before you actually start getting to post-production. That's a little different though, because now there are different ways you can leverage it. You're like, hey, listen, we've got this. It's in the can. It's in this hard drive.
Yeah, you have material. Yeah.
Help us put this on your screen so you can see it. And there's a different angle you can go there. So post-production is a little, it's tricky. It's a different angle you go to it with. It's a different way. It's a different technique you go through in creating your campaign. But yeah, I do suggest and I do recommend that if you're going to do this for the production, which most people do to get the funds to create the project itself from the beginning, is allow it some time, because you don't want that pressure of, we need to have X amount of dollars because we've already told so-and-so and so-and-so and our crew and our actors and all of that they're, on board, and we don't have the money for it yet.
And so let's go back just a little bit more detail. Like, let's say 35K is the actual number that we're trying to reach, right? Even if it's 6 months prior to like, let's say our shooting day is going to be 3 to 6 months from today, right? And we decide that we want to do a crowdfunding campaign. We're trying to raise 35,000 for production, just for production. Like, let's say it's just a team of 3 people, right? The director, the one of the producers, and maybe one of the actors, right? Like, would you recommend doing like at least a month? Because I mean, there's just people just don't understand the complexity of crowdfunding, right? There's some press involved. There's press. There's organization. There's daily milestones. Like, pretty much kind of doing like a little business plan. Like, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish for the next month. So on the day that we launch, the likelihood of us succeeding is going to be, way bigger.
Yeah. Now, there is a certain amount of planning that should go into it with your team. You all have to get on the same page. A team of 3 is a good team. We tell people to have at least 3 people, when they come and work with us. So 3 people is good. The thing is now, again, you have to focus on the campaign. So when people start putting together a business plan, and there's going to have strategy, but even myself, I work with campaigns all day long, and I still see campaigns that pop up on my feed, and people approach me regarding campaigns. Now, it's important that when you're campaigning, what you tell the public isn't confusing. Okay, you want to make sure that you're very close to what the message is, because if you're coming to ask me, let's say Jesus, you want to ask me to support your project, and you're like, look, Nelson, hey, we got this, I got a business plan, I got that, and this and that and that. And I might just be like, oh, wait, hold on. Okay, I heard business plan, I heard this, I heard that, I heard returns, I heard all of that. But what I really just needed to hear was like, Nelson, I need you to help me make this movie. Can you give me a few bucks? So much more effective. So all of that planning is good to have within your team, know your strategies. But, when you make things too difficult, when things become difficult, they don't just become difficult for your team. They become difficult for your audience as well.
Yeah, I see what you mean. That's really insightful, because like I interviewed Squeaky Moore. She's a pitch guru. She wrote this really amazing book, and throughout I would say the recurrent theme of the book, when you're pitching to whoever, whether it's a studio executive, an investor, a potential, crowdfunding person that wants to donate, is like, just focus on the story, right? Like, and I think what you're trying to say is like, try to communicate like on a human level, right? Like, this is why we're making this movie, and this is what we're trying to accomplish with this movie. To eventually, because I've seen some really creative, like, pitch videos, really awesome stuff, and I think the ones that have been the best and the most successful are the ones that immerse the world of the film within the pitch video. But it just goes back to the same thing that you mentioned. It's still with a lot of heart, in a lot of passion, and to encourage people to eventually donate.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I'm going to correct you on something, okay?
Sure.
When you tell people to donate, it's for a 501c3. Donate is for a charitable contribution.
So it's a nonprofit. Contribution. Okay, contribution. Yeah. Okay, so it's a contribution. It's not a donation.
We've worked. We've helped put together some really interesting pitch videos. And, a lot of them are heartfelt, and a lot of them come from love and passion. Actually, all of them come from the heart. But how what the video looks like, we've had some range. We've had some that had a very artistic approach. Very, very cinematically, stimulating, and that worked for that project. We've had some which just a person like this, like myself, just talking, and the message came through here, and it was important because that's what was close to that project. And again, if you're working with something that has to do with, with comedy, and it's a comedic type of thing, you could be real and be funny, because that's what your genre is about. That's what your campaign is about. So be in alignment with what it is that you're working on, and that would be my biggest advice as far as the actual pitch video. Because if you're a really out there eclectic type of artist and creative filmmaker, make your video seem similar to that, but make sure your message is on point.
Yeah, that's look, can you hear Nicole?
Yeah, no, I don't hear an echo. I'm good on my side.
Give me 1 second. All right. Can you guys hear an echo? No. Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
And Nelson, so going back to you're like a week away from like doing your campaign, right? And you're putting all this energy, right? And I think it's very interesting because I would say like about a third of the people that are in my group are either in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign without any necessarily prior, game plan or any prior knowledge. And sometimes, unfortunately, the success rate is, very difficult for them to hit, And sometimes, I've seen, people post their campaigns just on random pages, that I think in the hopes that, it might, 1 out of 1,000 might, be able to donate $5-10 or whatever. And I think and I think this is going to tie into, knowing who your audience is and, what kind of research does, the filmmaker and the production team need to, they need to do so when they're putting their posts and they're communicating their campaign to the right people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I just want to let there's a comment on there, Benjamin. We'll get to your question, man. It's a good question. I just read it, but I'll answer Jesus and I'll get to you in a sec, Benjamin. Yes, it's important to know your audience. Absolutely. If you're making genre, your horror type films, you want to reach out to some of those groups and stuff like that. But a lot of people really try to target, this is my demographic. This is my demographic. This is who's gonna, support my film. And you have to think about it. How often do you come across a campaign where you don't know the person and you give to it? It's very rare because you have to think about, well, how often do I contribute? Because you are sometimes also the contributor. You're not always the campaigner. So what would work for me? And the first people that are going to help you, and I'll tell you right now, the first people who are going to help you are going to be within your inner circles. That's how you're going to grow it. We work with a ton of filmmakers. We work with first-time filmmakers. We work with filmmakers who are wanting to learn how to become filmmakers, and they have an idea. And we have our celebrity clientele as well. And what I tell them all, and it doesn't matter if they're the biggest celebrity, it all starts within your inner circle. Okay. The people that are going to support you are the people that care about you. I'm going to reach out to you, Jesus. You're going to reach out to me. We're going to reach out to our production teams. We're going to reach out to our friends and our family and get the ball rolling like that. Now, when there's support, when there's that type of support, when an outsider takes a look at your campaign now, they're going to look and be like, oh, hey, this is cool. And it's got some support. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and support these people too, because it looks like they've got support already. So I would say don't rely heavily on groups and organizations, because your group is actually one of the more well-kept ones. And I gotta tell you, I like your group here that you have going on, because you're very engaged and involved with it. But it's very rare, because a lot of these Facebook and online groups where people say, hey, post your campaign, post this, post that. It's just a mess. And all it is people posting and not a single like on anything. So know your audience, but more than anything, know the people that support you, because that's where it's going to start.
So, that's like, because what I really want people is to at least accomplish with this interview is for them to kind of like, get that really eureka moment. Like, okay, now I see where, Nelson and other successful crowdfunding specialists, what's the reason why they always accomplish something. So if you start with your own circle, right, and you have like a really strong circle of friends, family, colleagues, and you know that you can get a certain amount from that circle, when does that, like, because let's say that covers the first third of whatever you're trying to fund, right? And at some point, I'm assuming that, whether it's Kickstarter, whether it's Indiegogo or Seed and Spark, they start sharing it within their own, platform, so other people can see. Because it's as soon as the project starts getting momentum, it almost creates its own press. You know what I mean? It creates its own marketing, and it gets to a point where it's just being shared without even with, I wouldn't say like your own effort, or maybe you might start seeing people being more engaging or sending you personal emails or making comments, and then you try to grab that as part of the momentum, and try to correspond with them, trying to encourage them to fund and stuff like that. So like I mentioned, I'm really curious, like, at some point, and I think that's like what I'm grabbing right now, man, is that, if within my circle, within my network, I can get a pretty decent chunk of what I get, then in its own way, it starts, accumulating, that snowball effect where it starts, kind of going on its own. And I think that's very important, right? At some point, whatever daily effort myself and my team are doing daily, at some point it's going to start, snowballing on its own and just building its own momentum,
Yeah. Well, yes. And I'll tell you how that happens. Okay. That happens again by outsiders. Let's just say I'm the outsider coming across a campaign that has its own supporters already. So when I go to it, I'm like, oh, okay, this has support. So I put into it because I see that there's already people that care about this project or this person. And the way it snowballs is not really snowballing, because behind a campaign that is actually taking off are a ton of actions. I'm going to say that there is maybe one point in this entire campaign where you're not stressed out, and that's the day the campaign closes. Because it's just, and I don't mean to say stressed out. Like stressed out, you will get stressed out sometimes. Okay, don't get me wrong, but you're working. Look, whatever it is, if you're trying to make $50K in a year, in a month, that's how much people make in a year.
Yeah.
So you have to take actions from, when you wake up, do you go to sleep, you're doing things, you're reaching out to people, whatever it is, however, you're calling them, you're emailing them, whatever it is. So the snowball effect is really just a lot of actions being taken met with results, and, when people see other people jumping in, that's the snowball effect that you'll get, because like, okay, cool, so-and-so's jumping on board, more people jumping on board, and people go look at your campaign and they're like, oh, well, look, more people just gave. This is cool. So at no point through this entire campaign should a person be comfortable and be like, set it and forget it, and it's gonna go ahead and build. You have to consistently be taking actions. I mean, I gotta tell you something. People, when people hire us to do their campaigns, we're not just giving them their homework. We're not just telling them what to do. We have a team of 7 people. Think about it: 7 people plus your team taking actions.
So that's 10 people.
We have. When people reach out to us, it's not just, oh, we got this already here, we click that and that'll take care of it. No, we are continuously taking actions all the time. It is a nonstop situation, and so is the other team. So if you guys are seeing that that's what we're doing, believe me, you all have to continue to take actions all the time. And no, that clock is ticking. Every minute that passes by is another minute closer to that campaign closing. So it can be done. It can be done, and it's always done. And I don't want to make it sound in any way like I'm discouraging people from running a campaign, because that's what we do. Run campaigns, get your money, get your film made, but get ready to roll your sleeves up, because you're going to try to make a lot of money in a matter of a month.
That's so crazy to put it that way, man. Like you're trying to make what somebody normally makes in a year, but you're trying to do it like in a month, and the amount of work that you have to do to accomplish that, it's a little not intimidating, but it's like more like a wake up call. Like, hey, this is going to be your full-time job for the next month or whatever how long your campaign is, and Nelson, I would love to hear, like, what's if you don't mind sharing, like, your most successful case study, something that maybe didn't have a lot of elements when it first started, but you guys ended up, accomplishing, like, more than you guys even imagined. I've seen a lot of your campaigns, and from, at least from what I gather, you guys have a tremendous success rate, man, and that's, once again, that's to hit to 1 million. Just think, I want the audience to kind of really, like, have that sink in their head. $1 million, like, in, within the span of a year, when, things started, when you guys started making a name for yourselves, people, you were building trust, you were building a track record. So Nelson, like I mentioned, I would love for you to share, a real powerful case study, from any projects that you've worked out throughout the year, that you said, what, this has potential. Maybe it doesn't have all the right elements yet, and it exceeded, like, your expectations. Like, wow, like, we really, like, we went up beyond the Call of Duty to make this happen for this project.
Well, I'll tell you what. We, as a company, don't take on projects that we don't feel are in alignment with what we care about. We care about diverse communities being celebrated in a positive light. We won't take on a project that is about, gangbangers in the hood. However, if you want to tell a project that tells you why these people are, products of these circumstances they were raised in, and tells a real life story, then we'll take it on. So to start off with, every project we take on does have, we feel, to have the potential. But I'll give you a couple of examples of some cool things, okay? So I'll give you 2 examples of how managing a campaign right can bring you success. So first, I'll give you one of our very first clients. Our very first client was a filmmaker who had a project with Danny Trejo attached to it. Now, another company had been hired to manage that campaign. The campaign was 10 days from closing, and they had about $8,000 or $10,000 in the campaign. A Danny Trejo project with $8,000 or $10,000 in it. Okay, and it was about 10 days from closing. We met with a filmmaker. We said, listen, we can help you. For whatever reason, he trusted us. This is when we just opened our company. In 10 days, that campaign went from $10,000 to $118,000. The reason, now, we didn't change the story. We didn't change the script. We didn't change the celebrity. We didn't change anything. The only thing we changed was our approach to the actual project itself, to the campaign. See, we came up with that message. You know how I was talking earlier about the pitch video? It has to be in alignment with what you're about. Now, we're very experienced in this, but that company prior had charged for putting out ads and doing this and doing that and all of this other stuff, and just spending more money than was received. For us, it's like, we don't need to spend money to understand the contributor's perspective. That's what we're always thinking of. In this case, the contributor is the client, but I don't want to call them a client because they're supporters. But the audience, the supporters, you really have to get in the mindset of your supporter. Okay, what do we have to offer? What are we promising? And what can we do? And you have to have integrity. I gotta tell you something. You have to have integrity with this. If you're asking people to give you money, financial support, it's your responsibility to deliver your very best project to them. So going back, that was a little off topic, but going back to that, from this company having this for 3 weeks, doing nothing with it, and we had it for 10 days, and we put $110,000 into the account with the same product. It's really just about the message, the messages, and really reaching out directly to the people and telling them what you're going to deliver to them, how you're going to do it, and keep them informed. Because here's a good bit of advice. You're asking them, hey, join me on this mission, but you're not giving them information on the mission. Tell them what this mission's for. Tell them what you're going to do. Tell them who it's going to be for. Tell them who it's going to benefit. Tell them how it's going to increase visibility for Latinos and for, for independent creators, whatever it is. So that's one example. The other example I wanted to give you, and this was Fanny pulled this off. She was working with some filmmakers, no celebrities attached, talented filmmakers, and raised over $100,000 for them. It was also, when the campaign was already live, and this was Kickstarter.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so this was, again, all or nothing. And that one just seemed like it was just a struggle. But the way it came through, the miracle of that what you're asking about, that story, what made it come through was that team was extremely coachable and willing to listen to the instruction given to by their coach, Fanny.
Yeah.
And the results showed, because, someone could walk you to the watering hole, someone could, what is it? I think I'm mixing two different phrases together, but like, people can present the opportunity to you, but if you don't take it yourself, it's worth nothing. So that I think that was maybe a little bit more of a clear example where, this team was struggling. It seemed like they were trying, but when Fanny came to them with the actual coaching, they were able to take the coaching on, execute, and see the direct results. So it's about execution again, and I've said it 100 times. It's really about taking actions and execution.
And Nelson, what was the reaction?
What was the reaction? when
when they were in the middle of their campaign, they weren't getting a lot of traction, and then Fanny comes in and this thing's just completely changed.
Oh man, I don't know. I'll still get excited if someone tells me I got 100,000 in my account to make another project. Yeah, they love it, and we see it all the time. People, we get thank you cards, we get gifts, and it's all nice, and we get people crying. I think the thing that matters the most, the thing that fulfills us the most is when people tell us, like, guys, listen, I've been working on this project for 10 years. It's been in my mind, and I've been scared to jump. I've been writing this for 5 years. I've been writing this since 5th grade in my head, whatever it is. And people come to us and they hug us and they cry and they're like, listen, this is my dream. And now I have the money to make it. And that's the reality of it, Jesus. That is the absolute reality of it. With the power of community and social media and everything else, it really is realistic to make, it sounds cheesy, but make your dream project a reality. Yeah. It really is. We have a client, well, Jesus, you know who? You were on our production team. We had a client come through with an idea who wanted to make a switch into this side of production, who's been in the film industry, but on the financial end, inside an office, but wanted to become an actual producer. Came to us with an amazing idea. And
Corey, by the way,
all of a sudden we crowdfunded. We have the funds. A month and a half later, we're on set with you and the rest of the team out in Texas filming. And we're currently in post-production, and we're already talking to people about distributing the project. Now, this person came to us with absolutely no experience in the field of actual on-field production. Knowledgeable just like anyone else is, and knowledgeable from like an office standpoint, but now has a project that is in post-production and already in the talks with some people for distribution. How amazing is that? And that money came from the community and support. So not only did that money come from there, but all of that support is there and waiting. Excuse me, I got to plug my laptop in.
No problem.
Yeah. All right, there you go. I'm back.
And Nelson, I mean, if you don't mind just walking us through the process, I'm pretty sure the majority of my audience is going to want to inquire about your services and what exactly is it that you provide for, filmmakers that, want to do a crowdfunding campaign. And if you don't mind just, kind of detailing, this is actually our specialty. This is actually the steps that we're going to take you to. And also I would love to for you to discuss, that distribution opportunity as well, because that's something that your production company does as well, on top of crowdfunding.
Absolutely. Hey, Jesus, are we going to get to? Should we get to Benjamin's question after this, or what do you?
Yeah, after this, if you don't mind.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sure thing. Wonderful. Benjamin, if you're still there, we hear you better now. We'll get to your question, okay, man?
And by the way, audience, if anybody has any questions, we're gonna have a small 5-minute Q&A. So feel free to start posting your questions as well.
Wonderful. So yes, so Avenida Productions is here from crowdfunding all the way to distribution. We are actually the only company in existence that supports the independent creator from A through Z or any phase in between. My partner and I, Fanny and I have gone through this, so many times on our own. Fanny's been on several different boards of organizations and, helping creators, get their projects off the ground and created. So, we decided to open this company to support the independent creator. We legitimately are the only company that you can walk in, pay us a fee, raise the money to make your film, shoot your project, have post-production, and then, self-distribute it. We're the only company you can walk in with that and leave with a project. And it's empowering, to the filmmakers. It's empowering to everybody. So, we do everything from crowdfunding. We crowdfund, people hire us for crowdfunding full campaign management. People hire us to consult if they feel that they have a solid team. Wonderful. They'll hire us just to consult them and to get them off the ground and point them in the right direction if they're a self-driven team. Casting, production, obviously we're a production company. We're producing a few different projects right now. Also the project that, you've worked on, which is in post right now. Events, self-distribution, if we have partners that are always reaching out to us, telling us, what they're looking for their distribution platforms. We work with aggregators. And one of the big things that's going on right now that is actually pretty popular and actually a really cool way to get your project seen is self-distribution. Now, there's a technique and stuff on how to distribute your stuff. Let's say, for instance, we're going on Facebook. What you're doing is you're building your audience. Okay, if you build it doesn't matter if you build your audience on Facebook, on IGTV, on YouTube, whatever it is, you're building that base. When you take that base and you go to Hulu or Netflix or HBO or whoever, you're like, listen, I have an audience of X amount and I get 120,000 views per episode. Can you do something like this? Guess what? You've created your own resume, your own audience, and now you're presenting it to these people who, to them, it's like, wow, you're coming to me with a golden nugget now. They didn't have to put money into you to produce that project. They didn't have to put money into you to market it. They didn't have to put money into developing and creating the audience. So there's a lot of power, especially now in these days. I'm really calling it's kind of like the golden age of independent creators, because there's so much ability and so much potential to create your own projects right now, build its audience, and then present it to, a larger distributor and say, listen, I have this. Do you want it? Cool. Don't worry about it. Because Facebook Watch is happening. There's YouTube, there's IGTV. There's a ton of ways that people can monetize on their own projects now. So, either someone wants to take you on, or you can, bring in the profits on your own. So,
and that's so encouraging, Nelson, because the majority of people, they get stuck. I mean, first you have the huge milestone of writing a phenomenal screenplay, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to go through the struggle of financing, a project which has its own hurdles, right? And then for me, at least, I would say production's still technically the easy part. I've done it so much that it's kind of like bread and butter already, right? Even post production is not challenging for me per se. Yeah. But distribution is still a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about it. A lot of people think that their options are not that powerful, that they might just sign up with a smaller distribution company that's going to get world rights, and they really just don't do much with the project, because I don't think they believed in it enough to really hey, that's the thing too, is and I'm glad that you're bringing everything. Everything's tying into that message that you want to do, that you want to dish out to the world. And how your distribution plan kind of still ties into that in a way, and I wouldn't say it's not because we're trying to be, define, or we don't trust the system, so to speak. But there's just so many like powerful options now for filmmakers to really have a little bit more control of where they want to put their film and how they want it presented, instead of, you know, the old days where you would get a distribution company. And I'm talking about smaller projects too, right? Like that didn't have, you know, strong, a notable cast. So they feel that their only option is to sell to just this small distribution company that might put it into Netflix or, you know, Best Buy or Walmart, and it just dies there, you know, pretty much. You know, it's
you know what, Jesus, I'm glad you mentioned that, because like we're still getting paid off of projects we made years ago. Because we decided to go, you know, independent and, you know, self-distribute. Think about that. We're getting paid on something that was made 6 years ago, whereas right now people are sitting on something for years and having it not do anything. And that just really isn't the way anymore. And it kind of ties into our name, Avenida. Avenida, for those who don't speak Spanish, means avenue in Spanish. And we are that alternative avenue now. And again, the independent creator is living right now in a wonderful time where you can create a project on a very reasonable budget, which you can get from the community, and then self-distribute back to the community that supports you, and have your profits come in quicker because you don't owe a financier, and you're not tied into some big distribution deal where someone's going to bear if you get a distribution deal. Otherwise, you're going to just get buried back under there. It's a wonderful time. It really is. It's a wonderful time for independent creators. You know, unless you have, you know, some really big names attached to something and you got a traditional, you know, funding in place and distribution and all that, then go for it. But you know what, and already in the 2-year span that we've almost hit, you know, we turned 2 years old at the end of this month. I don't know how many times I can tell you, Jesus, where people come to us and be like, oh, hey, cool, thanks for your service. Thanks for describing everything to me. But I got someone who's going to give me money. I got this is going to do. I got this in distribution. And I'm like, cool, good luck. You know, I really do wish them good luck.
Yeah.
But then months later, they'll come back and be like, oh, it fell through. And the truth of the matter is that the majority of the time it is going to fall through, not because of any particular reason for the creator themselves. It's just that there are this many creators and this many opportunities where people actually fund you and distribute you to where you're going to see anything. That's why, you know, we're actually Avenida, we're creating our own original right now, miniseries, and we're going non-traditional. You know, we're definitely going non-traditional because we want to show the power of the community and how to empower independent creators.
And that's the most, I mean, like more than anything, like, you know, everybody wants to get an opportunity to film their project and to show it to an audience that hopefully embraces it, you know. And, you know, me personally, I've been in film for about 15 years. You know, when I started off, we were still shooting on 35 millimeter, you know. Yeah. And then, you know, we had our group of people that we worked with, and like, yeah, man, one day we're gonna get some rolls of film and we're gonna, you know, steal a camera and just go shoot like for 10 days, whatever. And then, you know, distribution was just like a pipe dream. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it was like those are just for like, you know, I mean, we were just lucky enough to just work on set, you know.
Yeah.
And I would say like,
man, that was expensive.
Expensive, man. It was like, I would say like for the first 5 years, it was all 35 millimeter, like sets that I worked on. So I saw that first, you know, bulky digital camera. But now to get to a place where a filmmaker can with the generous, you know, contributions from an audience, make their film and distribute, you know, the film at their leisure and with the money flow coming back to the filmmakers. At the end of the day, you know, some people, obviously everybody has their initial goals. You know, somebody wants to just do a film for passion, and some other filmmakers want to do this for a career, right? And if you want to have a career, I think, you know, I've always been obsessed with self-distribution, right? Like that to me is like the holy grail, right? Whether it's a small theatrical run and, you know, retaining your VOD rights, your website rights, so you have the right to sell the film on your own, educational, you know, having the educational rights. there's just so many ways where that a filmmaker can possibly make a substantial living, a decent living, whatever. Everybody has their number, right, to define success, right? It might be 75K or 100K, but to have a company that literally takes you through that whole journey, and then with the credibility that your company already has is just a gift, man. I hope people really take advantage of that, because it's very rare to find a group of people who actually know what they're talking about. They have a track record of doing it. And I'm pretty sure if people to do video testimonials on how much you changed their lives, I mean, like, who wouldn't be moved by that? It's like,
we do have a couple, we have some of those testimonials. But yeah, it's beautiful, man. And listen, for us, it's passion. It's love. We love doing this. We wouldn't want to be doing anything else. We found a way to create a product that is beneficial for everybody. I mean, us as a company, yeah, we make profit, but you're walking out with how much money for your project and everything. It's I'm not selling candy to kids. It's a win-win situation overall. It's a win for our diverse communities. We work with a lot of female lead projects, a lot with the LGBT community, a lot with people of color. And for us, every project out there that supports a diverse group or just an independent creator is a win for all of us. And it's really shifting. And I gotta tell you, Jesus, it really is shifting the space now. Studios are trying to catch up to what's happening now, even with like the digital platforms. Netflix came and totally disrupted the mold. This company sell DVDs, mail you DVDs 3 at a time. Now they're a network, okay, and it's crazy, And now you have all of these networks trying to take their platforms and put them online, because this is it. We're trying to go to that way to go get distribution when these networks are trying to come here to get online. Independent creators, you need to know right now that you're where you need to be. You're in the stage online here, and it's the golden era for everybody to really make their mark as a creator. And it's lovely. It's amazing. It really is amazing.
Nice, Nelson. And do you want to just answer? I can't see the name of the person that.
I got one here from. It says Rue Benjamin Revolver. Well, I guess call him. I'll just go Benjamin.
Rue. Yeah, that's Rue.
Rue. Okay, Rue. So Rue asks, campaigning before production or casting. How does that work if people want to know who is attached to the project? Usually having your cast and crew share the campaign. That makes the wider network to contribute, which means more people to donate. If you campaign before the casting, doesn't that limit you? Yeah, that makes sense. But listen, again, Rue, what I was mentioning earlier is that if you have all the casting put together and all that, if you have a core cast that's already part of your team, like for instance, let's say I'm going to make a project and I know that I got like 2 or 3 actors that are just already part of the team. Yeah, if they're attached already, cool, go for it. Have them campaign with you, have them help you out. However, I would limit from holding a casting call and having other actors get excited to join your crew, to join your cast. And then once they join your cast, they realize that they have to do all of this other additional work. Now, if that's something that you tell them ahead of time, that's fine. But remember, you got to keep it simple. You want to keep it simple to the fact that, listen, you can explain who's on the cast, you can do all of that, but you really want to keep it precise and telling people mainly what the project's about and, and the impact it's going to have. So those are the most important things. Again, if you do have some cast members attached to it already, cool. But don't be too concerned with having all of the other stuff put in place yet. I hope you can kind of understand that there's a balance there.
And Nelson, where can people contact you to inquire about your services?
Awesome. So if people want to contact us, they can reach us at they can reach me directly at nelson@avenida.tv. We're not a .com, we're a .tv. You can also check out our website at avenida.tv as well. and like I said, Jesus, we're here to help people at any stage necessary. It's not just, we're a production company, we produce a ton of stuff, but it's also, people need help with crowdfunding. People need help with casting, with production, with self-distribution, with, grassroots marketing. We hold events. We put on we helped the PIF LA, which was the Panamanian International Film Festival LA last year, the film festival. We helped produce that event as well. So for us, we're all about bringing the independent creators exposure and have all your work seen, at any phase necessary, because there are a lot of great stories in there. There are a lot of wonderful stories that need to be told, and it's time that our communities are the ones telling them and telling them accurately.
Yeah, and also just a finishing thought, Nelson, and just I want people to remind people, if you're in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign and it's not going the way that you want, I mean, don't despair, right? There's options, right, to jumpstart that project once again, to bring some, give it some spark and so you can, obviously you hit your goal.
Absolutely. Look, if anyone has any questions and stuff like that, you want to see if it's a fit, we can help you out, feel free to write to me. If you write to me and we'll have a conversation, or someone on the team will have a conversation with you. There's no commitment. I understand that. But know that at the end of the thing is, we are a company for hire, but know that our expertise is to get money. So, we're pretty good at it. People come to us with this much money and they leave with that much money. So
yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. That's a very important point.
Good about what we do.
And also, any finishing thoughts, man? Any word of advice, encouragement, for that filmmaker that's just like, wow, man, is it even remotely possible, man? Can I really hit? Can I really raise 25K? Can I really hit and it's just so like we obviously put ourselves in a mental block. We keep on saying like, hey man, that's never gonna happen or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
And then you're proof that your company is proof that that it is possible, man. That I don't know if it's a mental shift. Maybe sometimes it's just a word of encouragement from another respected colleague that gives you that extra little boost of confidence, so you can say, you know what, man, I'm gonna take a shot, man. This is my we have a very small window in life to accomplish one of our biggest dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have some words of encouragement, and this is deep, man. This comes from within. That little voice that's always telling you that you want to do this, that you want to make this film. Listen to that voice, because most of us suppress it. We talk about like, no, we can't do this. We have to be safe. We have to listen to that. We have to go with a job that's secure. I can't take a month off work to do this. Yeah, you can. Why can't you? Look, life is going to be tough regardless for people. It's going to be tough. So might as well have it be tough and take a stab and take a chance at what you want to do. Now, if you want to make a movie that's going to require X amount of money, guess what? There really is a way to get it done. There is. We are actual proof of it and of getting it done. You already know, like, people have that voice in the back of their mind telling them what they want to do. You already know that that's the voice that comes from within you. And filmmakers, we're passionate people. We have stories to tell. We have stories to create. We're creators. We're artists. So when you suppress that, you're suppressing yourself. Take the leap. Really, the other side of this is there's going to be two things. You're going to know what the result is, and you won't have that doubt anymore. And you might just succeed at it. that's usually what's on the other side. You're going to succeed at it. That's what it is, man. Take the chance. You got to take the chances. There's no safe filmmaking. There really isn't. There's no safe filmmaking.
You just have to dive in, and that's it. There's no buts or if about it, man.
No. And you have a team to do it now. Listen, guys, if you guys have trouble with it, you can always reach out to us. I hope this video is very insightful. I don't want to make this just a plug to, like, as a commercial for us. Please, people, if you're empowered to do it, get it done. Do it. But there's always support. If you guys need additional help, reach out to us, and we do this all day, every day.
Well, Nelson, I would love to thank you and Fanny and your whole production team for taking the time. Because once again, people, I really want you to study this company, man, because they have an amazing track record. I would say their success rate is extremely high, and just finally just reach out. At the end of the day too, is like a lot of filmmakers are stubborn. We have this mentality that sometimes that we have to do every single thing. And like, no, I think that's one of the biggest things I learned. You let the specialists specialize in their particular area, man. So you can just really focus on the creative part, man.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I tell people one of the biggest strengths you can have is to know your weaknesses, because there's nothing like, dragging yourself and your team when someone is in charge of something they're not the best at. You're not doing a service to yourself or anyone else by not putting the right person in that position. I know what I'm good at, and I know especially what I'm not good at. And I have people in those positions doing their best because it's better for the overall team.
Well, thank you once again, Nelson. We really appreciate it. And once again, feel free to reach out to Nelson. And thank you once again, brother.
Absolutely, brother. We'll be in contact soon. Thanks for having me on. It was fun talking to you.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Yeah, buddy.